Federal agents on Saturday searched a two-story suburban home about 11 miles southeast of Nashville for clues as to why a motorhome blew up in the city on Christmas Day. A witness told Reuters officials were paying close attention to the basement. A person of interest has not been identified in what officials are calling an intentional act.
During the past 24 hours, our joint investigative team fielded nearly 500 tips.
FBI Special Agent in Charge Doug Korneski told reporters on Saturday that with scores of tips, investigators were working on identifying what appeared to be human remains amid the charred wreckage of Friday's explosion. He did not say whether the remains might belong to a suspect. Hundreds of agents and local police officers are scouring the site where, on Friday, a motorhome blaring a recorded warning blew up, injuring 3 people, destroying several vehicles, and damaging dozens of businesses.
Meanwhile, a Libyan commander has threatened to drive out Turkish troops from Libya by force if they do not leave by peaceful means. This, of course, is the renegade Libyan commander, Khalifa Haftar, who's backed by France, the United Arab Emirates and other nations. And he's now vowed to use force against the Turkish troops if the Turks don't stop, as he claims, stop interfering in the conflict. His comments have come in response to Turkey's decision to extend a law that allows the deployment of Turkish troops in Libya for another 18 months. Now, the renegade general Khalifa Haftar had launched an offensive to capture the capital city of Tripoli last year by toppling the United Nations recognized government that was already in place there.
Israeli warplanes struck several sites in the Gaza Strip early on Saturday after Palestinian militants fired 2 rockets towards southern Israel the day before. According to the Israelis, the airstrikes targeted a rocket manufacturing facility and military posts of Hamas, the militant group which rules Gaza. Palestinian media reported the airstrike shattered windows in East Gaza City, but there were no reports of casualties. The rockets fired at Israel on Friday were aimed at the coastal city of Ashkelon, but failed after air defences intercepted them, the military said. Hamas has been observing an unofficial ceasefire with Israel, and no Palestinian group in Gaza has claimed responsibility for the attack.
پول خواستیم از یک کشوری منتقل بکنیم که پول ما اونجا هست. اون کشور قبول کرده، اوفک هم به ظاهر گفته اشکال نداره، بعد گفته این پول حتما باید بیاد اول توی بانک آمریکایی، بعد از بانک آمریکایی منتقل بشه. خب کی اعتماد میکنه به شما آدم‌هایی که هیچ کجا نمیشه به شما اعتماد کرد؟ هر جا پول ما رو پیدا کردید دزدیدید، شما که در دزدی معروفید و ما چجور به دزد اعتماد کنیم؟
These migrants have nowhere to go. They're stranded in a refugee camp in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Their goal is to reach Western Europe, but for now their focus is surviving the winter storm. The Lipa camp near the Croatian border has no heat and no proper facilities. Lined outside in sub-zero temperatures, refugees wait for a donated meal and perhaps a sleeping bag from the Red Cross. A fire broke out on Wednesday, the same day the camp was meant to be shut down. A UN official says it was likely set by migrants frustrated with the scheduled closure and lack of alternatives. Now most of the infrastructure that housed more than 1,500 people is destroyed or damaged.
A Boxing Day bash erupts into a brawl. 150 teens challenge police, some armed with weapons. The mob revolts. That's when the riot squad moves in. They use their shields to push the group down the street, sending parts of the suburb into lockdown. The standoff drags on for almost a kilometre before the group spills out onto a main road and disappears. 2 stragglers were taken into custody, arrested for ignoring police orders.
We were scared, absolutely terrified.
The violence lasted hours and started inside an Airbnb. The host left too scared to speak on camera, but told us the girl who booked it claimed it was for a romantic getaway. But there was little romance to see, just destruction.
Across a pandemic-ravaged nation tonight, reality's sinking in. Help from Washington isn't on the way. Today, 2 federal unemployment insurance programs that would have been extended in the relief bill now expire, cutting benefits for some 12 million Americans. Millions more could be put out of their homes in January. The federal eviction moratorium is the next major program to expire on New Year's Eve, if the president doesn't act. On the president's desk, the bipartisan bill his administration helped negotiate, which he now refuses to sign. Tweeting this morning, quote, "I simply want to get our great people $2,000 rather than the measly $600 that is now in the bill." And complaining about pork, actually foreign aid spending requested in the White House's budget.
A Fly South Air flight en route to Cape Town had to return to OR Tambo International Airport after a fault on the right engine was discovered. Passengers then continued their trip, though, on a standby aircraft, while the cause of the fault is still being investigated.
We hate to delay and inconvenience customers on any day of the year, but obviously Christmas Day is a little bit of a special circumstance. So fortunately what we did was when we had radio in from the crew that there was an issue that they wanted to turn back, we immediately activated a spare standby aircraft, which was effectively there to accommodate the folks when they arrived back. And a vast majority of passengers, I think everyone except maybe 2 people, actually boarded the standing aircraft that was there waiting for them, and they were on their way again at about 20 past 4.
These are the last-minute preparations for Niger's historic elections on Sunday, ahead of what is set to be the country's first ever peaceful handover between elected presidents, after the current leader Mahamadou Issoufou voluntarily stepped down after serving 2 5-year terms. Mohamed Bazoum, a former interior and foreign minister, is the front-runner. He's facing off against 2 former heads of state, Mahaman Ousmane and Salou Djibo. But not against his main rival, former Prime Minister Hama Amadou, who was barred from running due to criminal charges, which he says are trumped up. The elections come amid a background of growing jihadist violence in the country. Niger observed 3 days of mourning earlier this month, after terrorists killed 34 people in a village in the northeast.